started. We don't have a sign-up sheet at the door, so I will randomly poll the audience. Call to order at 17:01. Make sure I get that. Get my little crayon out here. Yes, ma'am. Let's see. We'll start with announcements and citizen comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to suggest the addition of topics for discussion or to address topics of interest with a presentation limited to 3 minutes. Please, all speakers will conduct themselves in an orderly and lawful manner. All speakers will be recognized prior to speaking and will announce your name and address to be included in the minutes. State law prohibits the mayor and council members from commenting on any statement or engaging in dialogue without an appropriate agenda item being posted in accordance with Texas open meeting laws. So, yes, ma'am.
Donna Hartman, 112 Great West Loop. Good evening. And Kelly, welcome. We're so happy to have you. You're with us tonight. I just had one comment. So I was reviewing the building, the chapter 3 that we're doing from last time, and I had a few suggestions for Mike, and he seemed, very receptive to it. Well, the only thing is, so I spent about an hour and a half before I discovered I was making extra copies of the new stuff and all of that, and an hour and a half into me doing all my reading, I'm reading the exact same thing. And so have the changes not been made, or do we submit the wrong thing? It's the exact same thing as last month. Yes, and this is the same document last month, and this is a wonderful, I love how you've got this set up, Mike, where you highlight the changes and then you write your explanation. But we talked about a couple of things, like extending that to a year instead of 180 days, and you're like, yeah, that can be done. I think also the council needs to have in there that the city manager, that the building official works under the direction of the city manager, because since we're taking the city manager out of everything. And then the only other suggestion I had was on that pool, to put it back in that you do the inspections on the fences within that pool ordinance, since that has to be done at that time. And you said, yeah, those are all great. Well, none of that's in here. So it's the same document we're getting. So anyway, that's my question. And anyway, so I spent some good part of my afternoon doing nothing.
On the agenda, we can address that now. Yeah, so as that is in fact on the agenda, that was identified by the city manager, and that's actually, first, I apologize for you wasting an hour and a half. So that has been identified, and when we get to a council, that is from the city manager's office, the ordinance 25023 in regular session. We're recommending that it gets tabled this evening because it is in fact not correct. So, but thank you for catching that for us. Okay, Lynn, I know you just walked in. We don't have a sign-up sheet, or would you like to speak? Please, and if see hands for anybody else. So, okay.
Mine is a question too. Okay, 'cause, I mean, I know y'all can't answer, but okay. I've just noticed that for a long time now, the previous staff, I think it was Camille that did it, we used to have a monthly budget report in all of our packets, and I haven't seen that since September of 2024, so I was wondering if there's a way to continue this process. And then also about some of us that have turned in open records requests, I'm sorry, and we have not received those in a timely manner. And so I just wondered, I mean, because I really don't know, what is our next step? Do we turn that over to the AG, or what do we do?
Go ahead.
The request should have been responded to in one way or a fashion or another, maybe not to delivery of the documents, but sometimes there's extensions and what have you. So I don't know.
Oh, there's several of us, and it's not just me, so, but, okay. Yeah, okay. Thanks.
people from a year ago, January the 1st. Is this better? When somebody files a public information request and says, I'd like emails, all emails from January the 1st, 2025 to the present. Well, that's hundreds, if not thousands of emails. And all those have to be reviewed to be sure that they don't contain, privileged information. It's not like saying like a copy of the budget, so, that takes a great, it's costly, it takes a great deal of research, first of all, to compile all those, and then they've got to be reviewed to be sure they don't have information that's privileged under the Act. So what we should be doing is, if that's the case, is writing somebody back. Normally the Act provides that you're supposed to either provide them or at least respond within 10 days. If you can't, something like, you get a request like that, that's going to take, it may take 30 days or 45 days to compile all those and then to go and to review them. So we should be writing back and letting the people know what the circumstances are and how much is giving them an estimate of what the cost is going to be to do that. And that's going to be multiple hundreds of dollars worth of staff time to be able to provide those. And hopefully we add the money deposited with the city before we start actual work on it. So that may be, and then of course too, being short-staffed as we have been in the last 90 days, that's going to extend the time out to provide that information. But they certainly should be receiving.
Can we clarify a little bit with the requester and say,
We
is
try
there
to-
something
Yeah,
in particular?
that's what we try to do.
Okay,
is-
I think
is
that
write
might
them-
help.
Is write them back and say, listen, because of the amount of work this is going to take, we'll be happy to do it, but it would be helpful if you were able to find your request to be more specific, limit it in some way to be able to cut it down. We want to certainly give you that option. To save you some money and save the city the time and maybe cut down the length of time it's going to take to respond.
But you didn't receive anything back, Glenn? Okay, all right, so. Okay, just to clarify. Okay. Residents, anybody else wish to speak this evening during the workshop? Okay. Council, we'll move right in the regular agenda then. Like I said, there's a couple things when we get to them. I've got notes here, things that are recommended to be tabled. We'll start with discussion item 25086, discuss an ordinance approving the 2025 budget amendment recognizing revenue and expenditures. And this I will let you and Mary move through these.
Can I interject just glancing at it briefly? It still has several of the same issues that I had earlier. I wouldn't mind. I am going to ask that these be tabled because it's not that require more budget. And I think that before we recognize any additional FEMA money, because the very first one is recognizing an additional $34,000 of FEMA money. And also the original budget, as shown on this, is wrong. The original budget, as amended, is $782,870. And that that is what we budgeted originally at 614, and then we had an ordinance that increased at 156. So the original budget's wrong. I'm concerned this is going to put us reimbursements at $817,000 if we recognize this additional revenue. So I'd like to hold on it until we can get an analysis from Mary and Dennis
On the FEMA money.
on the FEMA money. Well, and it's on any disaster money we got. So I've requested, how much have we spent? How much have we received so far? And what is left to be collected? So I am extremely concerned about recognizing $817,000 when I have not really seen any analysis of FEMA yet. On the police department is 20, so that number's wrong on here, the department number. That needs to be fixed. We already recognized 23,375 with a budget ordinance of 25,005. We've already, Matt, you had a grant of 14,250 and 23,50. We already recognized those based on the grant award in April. And so this would be double recognizing that unless you got in an additional $12,000 in addition to the 14,000 we've already budgeted. And this says 0, but we actually have 14,200 in the budget on that amount. And then on the shield, it was 0, and we already made this budget amendment of 9350. So by making this amendment, it would be a duplicate amendment. So I'm saying table this. I'd like to work with Mary so that we can get it corrected.
I'd like to go ahead and have the presentation. She's working with both the auditors and Peacock. So I'd just like to go ahead and have the presentation first before we go further, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. What I wanted to go over, I'll start with 22 first, if you don't mind. 22 has the amount of revenue. Although the end of the fiscal year has already taken place, most of this money is already in fund balance. So there's no actual account number per se, because technically at the end of the year, it all goes into fund balance if there's a surplus. The account numbers that are here are the account numbers so that you could see basically where those expenses were originally budgeted for. I did go over this with Eddie Peacock, who does help us, because the system, I don't know if you remember me explaining that the system, when you go in and you do a journal entry or you do a budget adjustment, you enter in an account number, but the system in the background takes care of all other accounting entries in the background. So whatever entries the system requires us to enter in, we enter into the system. And I did go over the information, and basically when you're doing a carry forward from the previous fiscal year to the next fiscal year, technically those account numbers, there's no money in them because that fiscal year is already expired. So we do it just so that people can see that, yes, for example, we have the brush truck, the Fiona that we're still waiting on. We paid the Fiona, the 109, and then we have $32,812 in a purchase order that we're pending for them to complete so that we can pay. It was budgeted in 24-25, so we're going to bring that expense into 25-26. So this is really not an accounting document. It's a document that shows how the funds are going to be moved technically from fund balance, but so that you can see what account they originated from as they go into the current fiscal year per se. It's more of a visual interpretation.
Okay, so as a council person, it's our responsibility to approve a budget at the beginning of the year. Any changes that are made to that budget regardless of whether the system handles it automatically, which I would be surprised if it did. I know when you enter in actual transactions that it can book up to 8 transactions based on your one transaction, but that's in actual financial statements. A budget is totally different. A budget is like fixed. It doesn't have transactions entered into it. It only has budget amendments entered into it. So it's up to council to approve all the changes that go into the budget. And I can tell you that, Mary, you booking $97,000 into the Marina Fund for insurance proceeds does nothing to the $118,000 that we recognized last year in a budget amendment for the marina repairs. We have to go in to 24-25. We need a budget amendment for 24-25 that pulls the money from the prior year into the current year. What you're talking about on fund balances, yes, there is an account. It's called accumulated fund balance. It's an account, a physical account. You do have to relieve that when you bring over an amount from a prior year into a current year. So yes, it has to happen. It doesn't happen automatically. So again, I'll just give you an example. The $100,000 in the drainage fund. Well, this is going in and out of the same account. Okay, well, this, to book the transfer from last year of $100,000 that we set aside for drainage, to bring that in to 25-26 requires 8 entries. This has one of those 8 entries. You start methodically. You go back into 24-25, and you have to change. We just can't make up $100,000 in 25-26. It's got to come from somewhere, and it comes from 24-25 budget. So we've got to go into 24-25, and we have to take that amount out of the general fund, as far as a transfer, out of the accumulated reserve, because out of the accumulated fund balance, because that's where it is going to end up, and then we have to take it out of the drainage fund from last year, because that's where we budgeted it. That nothing happens automatically. You literally make 4 entries into the 24-25 budget, and then you bring it in to 25-26. So we cannot approve either of these because they're not accurate, and it requires a lot more to make these budget amendments to get the books of our budget to be correct. Otherwise, they are not correct.
Okay.
Before you continue your presentation, what your budget amendments are not to drill down beyond these other accounts. It's you're amending the budget that was adopted from last year, doing a budget carry forward to this year. Those accounts are the only ones we're worried about, regardless of how it plays out. There's different ways of doing this. Some agencies do it a lot more in depth. Some don't do it as much. So it's both sides could be, in this case, are right. The question is whether we are definitely tracking the accounts that where the revenue was and where the expense was, however many it breaks down. If it goes over to where it should within that cost center, and if it needs to be split up between, let's say, is it called Fiona? The
brush truck.
brush truck?
Fiona.
Let's say that was all moved over, but there's 3 different counts. It could be equipment, it could be software, whatever it may be, it can be split from there, and most likely will be, and most line items are adjusted that way. So council's decision, you want to table it, that's fine. And I'd like you to go ahead and finish out your
Yeah.
presentation.
And what I wanted to say, if the budget amendments, if the wishes of the council is to include as much of all those entries that are required, accounting-wise, because a budget amendment document, and I spoke to Eddie Peacock, who is also a CPA, does not have to be on the budget amendments, because the budget amendment, what it's saying is, because it all goes into fund balance, and I emailed the documents to him. I did pull the $3,500 from the police because I didn't get a hold of Chief Schutze, but from what I understood, there was $5,000 that had been received in 24-25, so it would definitely be an increase. So that one will come back, and if you all want to see the budget amendment details to that level, then we'll bring it back with that amount of detail in it. I don't,
Preference, we have to approve changes to the budget. You are pulling money out of 24-25. That's a change.
yes, ma'am.
We have to approve it.
Yes,
You have
ma'am.
to give it to us in a budget amendment so that we can approve it. This isn't preference. This is, I'm sorry, it's accounting 101. It's a debit, it's a credit. And yes, we do have an account for accumulated fund balance.
Yes.
And we use it in the budget. Dennis,
Yes.
we put this in the budget where we pulled, there's a road that you carried over that was restricted, and there was something else that you carried over that was restricted last year, and there, it got budgeted into an account called accumulated fund balance. So honestly,
Again.
our books right now are not correct. The budget is not correct for 24-25. I did an analysis for Mary and Dennis a month ago where I gave them our original budget from 24-25. I loaded in, Mary wasn't here at the very beginning, so I loaded in all the budget amendments that we approved. And I came up with the amount that should be in the budget. This was in code at the beginning of the year. This is fund view at the end of the year, and they do not match. And part of this needs to be cleaned up because Mary doesn't even know, I guess, that we did a budget amendment, back in April and May for some of this stuff she's proposing a budget amendment for now. But it's on this sheet of paper, all the documentation, all the budget amendments we've approved. So it really, I'm sorry, it's not preference. It is, we have to have the ins and outs. We can't just pretend we just got $97,000 of additional marina proceeds. Okay, if we take the 118 from last year, we add this 97, that says we got $245,000 of insurance proceeds for the marina.
No, ma'am. On the insurance proceeds for Marina, it says that for 25-26, we're putting in that account, in insurance proceeds, $97,000. I went ahead and I put the decrease from revenue for fiscal year 25 that shows us a decrease of $97,000. So a negative and a positive really ends up being a zero, but the amended budget for this year that is at zero would be at $97,000. The prior year in 24-25 would be a decrease of $97,000.
Do me a favor, just get the presentation, you don't mind, Mayor, City Council.
Okay.
You all do what you want to do with it. It's, I know,
And I don't mind sitting down. I want to make sure that
Right.
we're all on the same page. So if I
understand
need
that.
to meet with Dorothy, I will,
just
and
get the
we'll get it to
presentation
where it needs
first.
to
Let's
be.
get that out, and then they've got all the information, then they can decide what they want to do.
Okay. On the 2 grants that we, that did go to council was the approval to approve the application. Oh, you're right. Those 2 did go. Yes, those 2 did go. So in 21, we did recognize those 2. That is a mistake on that one. The FEMA amounts, the $34,000, that is new revenue for FEMA. That was, to my understanding, that's something that was not budgeted as part of that. And we have not added the extra $34,000 because it just came in and that's part of your backup.
So Dennis, we're gonna get $817,000 from FEMA, because that's what this budget amendment is telling us. Is it incremental money, or is it just money that we've already applied for?
Are you using the last amended budget, or are you using the original budget? I know the form says original, but actually what it should have and/or amended budget, so we're working from the same set of numbers for one. That's one of the things that we've lacked on our end that we need to change. It's because sometimes it is original and sometimes it's amended, which the amended is the original from that point forward. But for clarity, for council and for future reference, it'd be better if we had the same numbers from the same understanding of what comes through.
Yeah, I agree with that. I can go back and redo that.
Yeah. If this is such, I'm sorry.
original budget, from that account number 02004810, the original budget shows 712,790, not 712,309.
But it's not
So-
712 at all. It's 782. When you take 614 that we originally budgeted, and then you take the budget amendment of 156,
Mhm.
approved back whenever we approved it, July. We approved that one in July, so Mary was here.
Mhm.
That equals 782 that should be in our budget. If you, okay, we have to have an audit trail.
Yes, I agree.
We have to give the auditors, here's our original budget, here are all budget amendments
Mhm.
and ordinances, and then that should equal what's in the budget. It does not right now.
It's 26.
Okay, I'll go back and look at the FEMA numbers.
Yeah, I'd like to know
Yeah.
anyway, I'd like to know how much.
So-
is FEMA.
Yeah, versus what, because that's a valid question, because there was so much money already budgeted, the 640 something, and how much of that we did receive, I wouldn't be able to,
Plus we added 156 as a budget amendment in July.
yes,
So that's
Uh,
782.
yes. I'll go back and look at
If
21.
council's comfortable with us tabling that, Mayor, we
Yeah.
can go ahead and do that. There's a little misunderstanding on both sides. I'm just
Yes.
going to say the way it is. It's
Yes.
not exactly the way it's being depicted. That said, if it means clarity and we can bring it back a more descriptive outline, that's great. Ultimately, we're going to have to recommend that we follow the information. We're paying for consultants and/or auditors, and that's where we're wanting to get to. Some of this stuff may or may not be necessary. If it makes it more clear in the decision-making around this table, I'm all for it. My apologies, my
Yeah.
shortcoming, but I do want to make sure that we get these things through, and we do need to, Mary, we do need to make sure we
Yeah.
have, because one thing that throws people off is amended budgets, and then
Yes.
that's trying to track where the last thing they did, and we can even show a section that
Yes,
shows
and
the last
the number from the original, what's ever on there, is what I see on the screen, and that, knowing the issues that we have, I took that number from the number that shows up on the screen, and so,
Auditors are going to want, what did council approve? What amendments did you make?
We're familiar with that.
yes,
That in the budget.
Yeah, we're familiar with that. Well, I understand that. Like I said, if it gives us council more of a understanding what they're approving, then so be it. We'll do that. But I've heard enough I think it's better if it means that much, this council, we don't have, well, because it's not one person, it's a
That much
body.
to the law.
no,
Well,
I mean,
no,
I feel
actually-
comfortable with, especially since I did notice right now that those are the two went, and I know that with the issues that we have right now, when I put the account number in, just so you know, I put in the account number into the system, and it shows me what the original, the most latest budget is. And so, me knowing already what I know, I should have double checked that number. And so I own it. I own 21.
On this sheet that I gave you on October 27th, exactly what should be in the budget. I'll be glad to work with you on it.
Well, we'll take the information you have, but the information we're really looking at is because you're going to be approving the same item you're looking to work on. So let's just keep it clean, and we'll work with you. We'll get the information, and you'll take it back, and you'll work with the auditors and/or the consultants and figure out where we're at and what needs to be done.
Yeah,
That's what I
because
recommend.
for the FEMA money that was received beforehand or budgeted, I need to go back and probably look at all that. And it'll flush out because we're almost done. Well, that's part of another presentation.
And so we don't go down this again, let's make sure that we provide council a different format than we use. They're wanting more information here.
Yes.
That may,
I'll take out the original budget. That was the template that was there, and I'll put the last approved or adopted or through ordinance budget on there.
or actually, there's nothing wrong.
Adopted, amended,
Right.
Let me just suggest that we just go ahead and list any amendments on that account in the notes. So there's always going to be something
The
that will
backup,
give
and have the
everybody what
backup
they
for the
need.
previous accounts. I agree.
Okay.
That'll help.
Just consider them notes and put them underneath that.
yeah. and
Yes, sir.
you'll catch a duplicate.
You'll catch everything you need. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's 25086 to 25087. So we'll move, when we get into the regular session, we'll, motions on both of those. 25088 is for ordinance, here we go with the microphone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To discuss chapter 3 regulations. Can I get a new microphone? It's to discuss, there we go. I don't know, it was working fine earlier. Okay. Okay. Okay, so Chapter 3 building regulations, from what I understand, the recommendation, those are not updated, is essentially to just table that for this evening. So council, unless there's any specific discussion you want to have, we will just kind of plan on that and move forward through that item.
Well, I would like to just comment that.
Yeah, please.
That I had come up with some questions, maybe about 10 questions, and I'd given it to Mike back on October 14th, before, it was the day of the council meeting. I didn't expect answers at last council meeting, so we tabled it. But then when I got it this time, nothing had been addressed. And so how do I, so my dilemma as a council person is that I get information and I review it and I make comments, and I'm only 20% of the body. So how do we as a body give our building inspector and officer and every hat he wears, how do we give him as a body what council wants to do with this, so we can get on with it? This is the third time I've reviewed it. This is the third time I've given comments, and quite frankly, the process is not working.
I wanted to reach out about that too, and I hadn't talked to Mike or Dennis about this, but I did have Temple Area Builders Association reach out to me because they are putting together a committee for all of our local municipalities, so Salado, Temple, Belton, trying to get everybody to adopt the 2024 IRC and basically make it to where there's some amendments that every municipality does to make it unified, so it makes it easier for our building officials.
Love it.
I love it too. And so they're having their first meeting in November. I was going to bring that up this evening.
Is that
So
something Mike goes to?
I think it would be something that Mike.
They reached out to us, and yes, Mike's talked to me well before that, so we're
Well,
looking at
and
that.
he's been on top of this, I think, since the day he got here. So
But to answer
Great
I
idea.
think it's a great idea. I think it helps our community. It gets us up to a higher standard.
Not reinventing the wheel anytime something happens. We're working with our regional partners. Right. Right. Just tailor it to,
And I think to answer your question, Dorothy, I think the best thing would do, provide a copy to me, and we'll make sure it goes to all the stakeholders, because P and Z should get a copy of it as well as Mike. Just so.
Got a copy?
No, I'm talking about for anything that's going to be on a work product that's going to come back to council should be decided. First of all, I would want P and Z to weigh in, first and foremost, before we even get there.
They have been.
Well, they can generate a lot of that stuff on their end, and just reach out to me directly and Mike, and we'll set up a three-way and just discuss it. But that's the.
Well, before we approve it.
Well, given some of the challenges you can have in that kind of thing, the best thing to do is have a routing form for anything that's proposed. And that routing form would first go to you or to Mike, both of them if they will. And those changes be solidified on your end and our end, and then bring those back and recommend to council what the two groups would, because it may not be the same thing. Mike may not agree with you, you may not agree with him from a P and Z standpoint, but once that routing step goes through, we got something back and we see the supporting document, then council can get the whole packet, and they'll know exactly both sides, because ultimately they're going to have to make the decision anyway.
Yeah, and I think that first piece is working. Mike shows up to P&Z meetings, and Ken and his group, they work together, and they do come up with the document. They came up with this document. I'm beyond that point. I'm saying, how does council, as a body, review documents and make changes? Do I sit here and go through, okay, okay on page 3. I think the city manager should be added to that the building official reports to the city manager. Do we vote on it? Do we all agree? I'm just tired of reviewing documents with comments and nothing happens. It has nothing to do with P&Z. It has nothing really to do with Mike. It has to do with this body. How do we, when we get policy, get changes made to them? But we don't, maybe it's rhetorical, but we've got to figure that out as a body.
Well, with that routing system I was talking about, it will have a recommendation what you should do from the staff's perspective. It's ultimately going to be your decision that you all can say, we disagree, agree, disagree, whatever. And then that could be solidified and brought before you in an ordinance change or whatever. But there's got to be a process written down. And I don't speak for them. They don't speak for, I'm talking about P&Z, and they don't speak for staff. Well, it does make a difference. I've seen it both. I've seen what we're going through, but I also see where there's a much more systematic approach to trying to make change that, again, how the body decides, but have them for you and make a reasonable decision, make a decision based on what you're given, or come up with a different way. Because that's not unusual for cities to give recommendations based off the various stakeholders' input.
Workshops are for. The workshops.
But ultimately, you'll have all that information. I think it would give you a better idea, clarity. And then, again, you all can throw it out and say, we don't want any of that. And that's your all's.
I've looked at this 3 times, so it hasn't changed. I really like Mike's, the way he made his comments and the way he made his edits. And there's a couple things you put in your comments that I want in the body of the policy, and I'd like a couple clarifications. So
Well, that he needs to take that direction from the city manager's office, but I would like to get that input from the stakeholders and before we go down that road, because there's more people than just us to make that decision to recommend to you all.
they've already recommended something to us. I think we're getting caught in semantics.
Okay.
They've already recommended the document 3 times. I've provided feedback 3 times. And I don't know how many times you guys have provided feedback, but the fact is, we're still tabled. This is the 3rd time I think we've tabled this because of something. We don't get through it. And that's what workshops are for. And maybe some documents we don't have to go through line by line. If everybody goes, I read the policy, I just have a question on page 10. Yeah, but that person doesn't report to P&Z, and it doesn't report to the council. That person reports to the city manager. So I think it needs to be clear that that person reports to the city manager. Yeah, I know. And that's like the very first line. Okay, that one.
Yeah. So,
Some policies, we might not even have any changes. We might go, we love it the way it is.
so it sounds like with this one, for example, and again, it won't apply to all of them, but it sounds like, Dorothy, what you're asking for essentially is council to conduct a workshop to just go through chapter 3.
This is a workshop.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Never do it, but
yeah.
for some reason it's getting tabled again because I'm not quite sure why, but that's okay.
Well, I think in order to get through the whole chapter, it's going to take a special workshop.
More than
Is that
20
a thing?
minutes.
Yeah,
I-
more than what we have.
I do have one,
Well, the problem with that though is then we get 5 different voices again instead of, so
Gotta speak as a body.
yeah, I think for something like this, we need to have just a workshop, pick a day, whatever, go
do it
ahead.
tonight?
Um,
Can we do it tonight?
It's not a short discussion, I don't think.
yeah, I think chapter 3 is, yeah, this is going to be a by itself day, I think. Yeah.
Well, and my thought, again, I have not like sat down with any of the stakeholders in our surrounding areas, but some of this stuff would probably apply with some of the things that they are trying to navigate with the 2024 IRC. So I don't know if we want to have Mike do all this hard work, and then we're like, oh, wait, 3 months from now or 2 months from now,
Is there
every city
something
around
in
here
this
is
policy
adopting.
that's imminent that we need to change?
So I don't know what the right answer is.
I don't either, but that's a good point.
So this is still necessary then? This is still a necessary document then?
Well,
Okay.
what about Tuesday? Could we not,
Well, it's a workshop, so we're not, what's your take on that, Neil? Fine, since there's no 3 business days, or is this, because there's no decisions going to be made?
next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday? Well, don't we have a meeting already on?
The 18th we do.
I was just saying, tack it on to that.
That's a special session.
That's what I was saying.
EDC
workshop
is
after
pretty meaty, and there's a lot of homework on EDC. And Linda's
Yeah,
not
that's
here
true.
to speak to
That's
it,
true.
but I would just as soon have a clear head EDC in it that night. And it starts at 5, so what would you do the workshop, 3? Let's,
Maybe find another date.
Yeah, I think,
All right.
I think chapter 3 needs to be a
We can
standalone.
call
day.
around to you all and find out what's going to work for you all and get it on the next available time.
you had wanted a special workshop, a special session with us between this meeting and December meeting. So maybe that can be the time that we do the workshop on chapter 3.
Yeah.
I don't know what you had on your mind, but I know you wanted one.
I do. That works. Kelly will call around and find out what's the best time for it and make sure.
Next week, maybe the following.
Because we got Thanksgiving the following week. That's the crutch. Even if it was though, Dorothy, even if it was like the first couple days in December, if you're all good with it, then we can still do it. If you say no, then obviously if you're all decide what we're going to do. Have Kelly go around and we'll shoot for around that, because Thanksgiving weekend, people are traveling. Unless you all say otherwise, I would recommend we just go with first part of December. Okay.
Any other discussion on chapter 3, council? Okay, we'll get a workshop scheduled for that one. 25089 is the nameplate designation for Morgan's. So Dennis, if you'd like to cover that.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor, City Council, this is something that came up on the workshop at the last meeting. However, the workshop was not, that was just to discuss it, and I'll go into a little bit of detail there in just a second. But the reason it's coming back before you is because on the regular agenda, it didn't make it. So for that reason, we are, so for an action item to approve it. So it's coming back to you today. Nothing's changed. What it boils down to is back in the day, Morgan's Point Resort also laid claim to Morgan's Point through the Postal Service. Morgan's Point, Texas, right down around Dallas, or excuse me, around Houston, wants to use that, and the only way they can use Morgan's Point is to have you all decide that you're willing to let it go. If you, it's been run through Neil, and if you're all okay with it, Morgan's Point will get to use that name. Anything it's the historical document that we reference in the future, we're allowed to do that. They will have to acknowledge it, that they did receive it, and they are going to follow that aspect of any pre-existing documents or records reflected in Morgan's Point. This action is to approve a draft letter. It's also in your packet. And the draft letter, again, was through Neil, and with his seal of approval, I want to sign it until you all give permission, and we'll get it out tomorrow if you all do go along with it. That's it.
Council, any discussion?
So just so I understand this, is we're gonna retain Morgan's Resort, they're gonna take Morgan's Point. So then we will no longer use Morgan's Point, period. It will be Morgan's Point Resort.
Right. we can't control others. Sometimes you'll see a grant come through, it says Morgan's Point. People mix it up all the time. They get a lot of our calls. They're a small city of maybe, I'm guessing, 300.
Couple hundred.
So people naturally go with Morgan's Point and thinking it's us, and it's not. And they called and complained that people are calling them, and well, we have no control over them, but we'll put it out again. We have in 24 when I was here. But that said, they really want to use this. They're trying to get a zip code and set it up, I guess, for the future. I don't know anything about the city, other than it's very,
Tourists.
yeah. So this just makes it allow, give them the opportunity to have that, and we still preserve everything over the years.
Is there any negative for us to do this?
Neil can, I don't see anything, it's third name of their city.
They have the name.
They had,
That's what I'm thinking.
yeah, they had the
Well,
name first.
we technically, I'm messing with you.
It's true, but evidently we had to add resort because Donna probably has the background on this because they already had the name Morgan's Point and we had Morgan's Point. And for some reason, way back when, we said, okay, we will be Morgan's Point Resort.
Did they? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, since we have the claim to both of them, the Postal Service saying you have to get us, as in Morgan's Point Resort, to release more. So they can, and that's what this action tonight will be for.
Hey, how we doing on lapel mics?
I'll cover that one.
we-
It's been an adventure. Okay, we got two more we'll get through. I think we're going to do well on time tonight. 25, I'm sorry, Council, anything else on the nameplate designation? Okay.
We should start nicknaming us NPR.
Right, good point.
We should just start promoting NPR. That would
Yeah.
help.
Lay claim to it. You want us to lay claim to it?
25090 is a resolution appointing members of P and Z. So real quick on that one, there was a goof, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but essentially what happened is P and Z is actually meeting tomorrow night to discuss their new members. So I got an email asking if if the governing body wanted them to forego that and just forward what they had. I told them absolutely not. I want them to go through their process and do what they do before sending it to us. So consequently,
Hopefully they're already volunteering, right, Ken? They're already,
yeah.
that's the most important.
Yeah. So essentially, we'll be looking to table that as well this evening. So, and then the last thing, 25091 is the investment policy. Dennis, I'll let you cover that one in the direction with that.
Mayor, City Council, there's, with the changeover personnel, there's a little bit of a concern I have about giving exactly what's due to council. So what it boils down to, that you have an investment policy, that's all fine, but any changes, and needs to be some minor changes to it, very minor, but they have to be strict, there has to be a strike through on those changes, and they both have to come to council at the same time for you to see what's changing in it and what you're going to approve. And so I need a little bit of time to go back over that and make some other modifications to it. That said, the law does require, under the Texas Local Government Code, that it has to be done annually. Some auditors hold you to the date from 12 months from there. Some of them hold it within, like the statute says, annually. Talked to them when they were here Monday. It was a good meeting, but that was brought up, and they said, no, we're the same thing. We understand it's annually, and they said as long as it's done within reasonable time. So we'll get it here in December, or the special meeting. Well, it's probably going to be the first week in December, I'm guessing. But that's really all it is to it. We just got to have that strike through. It's what's there has been changed, but the strike throughs haven't been done properly, and the numbering and stuff like that, I want to have it cleaned up.
So I have some comments on that. We have 10 minutes, so I won't hand out what I have, but I'll lay it on your place at the break. We have this 22-page policy that we adopted in October 24, and we are not complying with it at all. One of the things the auditors do when they come in, they not only look that you have a policy, but they look that you are in compliance. We are not in compliance. I would like to add a section on pooled cash, because that's what we do with our cash. It together into one bank account, and we invest from those bank accounts. We don't have separate fund cash accounts. We don't have separate fund investments. So this needs to be modified. We don't have an investment committee. Well, I guess we have an investment committee because the members have been identified, but they have never met. They're supposed to meet quarterly. They're supposed to be trained 12 hours a year. They're supposed to have some internal controls, which should be approved by council, but we haven't seen them yet. We're supposed to have an investment firm. Dennis worked very hard to try to get someone. You went out like three times to try to get an investment advisor. We do not have one, so I want to change that from that we shall have an investment advisor to we may have it. That will get us in compliance. We will get one. We're not relinquishing saying we don't want one, but that would put us out of compliance with that one word. We need quarterly reports, which we don't have. We need investment strategies. This policy says in investment strategies based on the fund, every fund is supposed to have a cash account, a fund balance account, and a cash forecasting amount, like looking out 3 to 5 years. We don't have any of that for any other fund other than the general fund. Again, we're not compliant. So I would like to tweak the policy so that this group, I don't want to approve a policy that we know we're not in compliance with and that we're going to continue to not be in compliance with. I want to get the policy, which we can. I have the GFOAs, which is the Government Financial Accounting Group. I have their sample policy, investment policy, and I have Kerrville's. Ours is 22, Kerrville's is 10, GFOA's is 8 pages. I think we can reduce it down. We can tailor it to our situation right now. It only has to last a year. This isn't in perpetuity like a master plan. And let's get ourselves in compliance.
May I? Mayor, City Council, there's a couple of issues there. One is when I gave you that policy last year, first of all, we need to have a policy. We hadn't had one adopted in, I think, 4 or 5 years. So one is that's part of being in compliant. Two is I told you at the time there will not be a switch where you can flip it on and be there. You have to work toward that. The investment advisor was part of that. It's hard to get an investment advisor when we're that many audits behind. Two, we are working toward compliance. We've slowly been, although busy, but yet still required to be meeting. And the mayor and I've had that discussion. We're trying to get that set up. Right now, those new employees that are within that 12-month period, they have 12 months, should I say, upon hire date, if they're in a position, they have 12 months to complete their Public Funds Investment Act training. I've gotten mine already, so that's good, but it's up for renewal next month. I'll take the updated training. I talked to the auditors about this as well and let them know that we're moving in the right direction. So you can look at it different ways, but strictly out of compliant, it's going to take a while before you get there. But let's say that, but I do not recommend that investment policies are not for where you're at or where you've been. It's about where you're going. You're about to have your audits finished for the last 5 years, near term, and you need to have access to funding strategies for the investment advisor to maximize return. I don't know anything about these other places, and but I can honestly say in the investment advisors I've met in my career that policy is sufficient to take us wherever we're going to go. And I do not recommend scaling it back or modifying it. Keep those options available. We're going to have to meet those requirements no matter what. But like I said, it won't happen overnight when I gave it to you. And we are working toward getting the rest of the training done. I've already talked to you weeks ago about what the deadline is to get that done. And Amanda's the other one. And actually the mayor too. So, yeah. I understand that, but the whole idea is we are working toward compliance and we are getting there. It's just slower than we'd like. But that said, I don't recommend changing it to moving it back because this is where we're at for now. You need to keep it in mind, you're about ready to finish 2 audits and you need to start looking at money. You may have to issue debt and that money has to make money while it's sitting there in order to further your coffers. Council's decision what you do, but I'm going to recommend what I'm going to recommend and you all decide what you want. But I think you ought to think through those key points because, and like I said, the auditors are very much, I talked to them this past Monday. So they know we can't flip a switch and make it happen. So, and I guess you said the certificate was delivered to them for compliance, yeah.
Well, then we will need to, as a council, acknowledge, like, we are gonna have the audits, and at that point, we will have fund balances by fund. I agree with you on that. And I also agree that this is for, you know, when we get bigger. This is, I mean, a policy can be robust and cover all things, even if we aren't there today.
Yes.
I absolutely agree with you on that. But are we gonna have cash forecasting by fund?
You should have it now. But you will have it. Yes, you will have it, because that is part of that position is to do, and whether they've done it or not, I don't know, but we can definitely, that's where it needs to go.
Yeah, well, do we even have a module? Do we have a cash forecasting module?
You can do you can do forecasting on revenues and you can do that in-house. You don't have to have a computer program for that.
You know, even Excel?
Module. Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. You will use Excel. Yeah, exactly. So,
All
yeah,
right, well, that's, I understand what you're saying. I hope you understand what I'm saying. I can't pass a policy when I am not in compliance.
Yeah.
And this is council's policy.
right.
So we have to say, we're gonna pass a policy that we're not in compliance with.
I've been in these shoes before. Council members that I work with had to make a decision. And their decision is if we adopt a policy that we know we're not in compliance with, but as long as we're making progress, that would be considered that we are compliant for that period until we get where we need to be. If you, for example,
Well, as
let's,
long as we have goals, as long as we say we're gonna start, cash forecasting by fund by June, and we are going to invest in more than cash and, something else by September, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
I'm all for growing and doing things, you know, better. But I don't wanna set us up for failure, right?
yeah, I don't think, yeah, and I just use a real good example where I've seen it happen to where I came from is our debt was higher than what it should have been, and we wanted it at 25%. And well, it was at 27, but every fiscal year we brought it down a little bit more. But as long as we were making progress, council looked at it as compliant. And that's what I'd recommend here. A lot of that stuff, like I told you, just can't throw a switch and make it happen. But the auditors understand that, I believe, my interpretation.
They'll still write us up that we're in non-compliance.
They're going to show, they'll no doubt show, yeah. But they also know that thing was just originated a year ago. So, yeah.
And we passed it, so it's our policy now. We're not going back.
And it gives in those meetings, those reports, the standardization of it to make sure council sees it and say, yes, this is what the format we're looking at. I'm sorry.
No, not at all.
Okay,
Any other discussion, council?
so that one will come back to us.
Yep. These are in the regular session. So the only things we have left in the workshop are finance director update, city manager update. I'd like to postpone those and include those in the regular session. They're listed on there as well. So without any objection, we'll go ahead and adjourn the workshop. We'll take 5 minutes real quick to utilize the facilities if you need to, and then we will reconvene back in a regular session. I've got 17:59.